All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode number 290 of the Restoring Rapport podcast. We're super excited for the content we got planned out for you guys today. As always, this is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family and trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way. I'm your host, Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today, we are going to be reviewing a video by a couple who's going to be discussing their breakup. Again, the title of the video is Why We Broke Up Part 1, Unequally Yoked, Heartbreak, and Making Idols Out of Each Other. We're going to discuss all those things in this video today. Heartbreak, breakup, making an idol out of your significant other, and all of that. And I have so many thoughts on this, but first I want to hear this couple's story. Because, that does have an impact on, why they made the decisions they did. The podcast is called Growing Through It. So check them out on YouTube if you haven't already. And let me know what you think. Also, let me know what you think of this episode by reaching out through the link in the show notes. Actually, it's not there anymore. Sorry. The link in the show notes got removed by Spotify. So you can now send me exclusively voice messages and messages on Instagram and Facebook if you want to reach out. I would love to hear from you there. It'd make me feel super connected to you as an audience member, and it would make the podcasting system two-way. So consider that if you want to. But today I'm going to kind of make the case that, you don't really ever have to break up. And I don't mean that as in you should stay with somebody who's a terrible person. I mean that you should probably know everything you need to know about somebody before you start dating them. And so ideally, if you did everything right, you shouldn't have to break up. Now, I know that people make mistakes. I was one of those people. And so I understand, why you may find yourself in a situation where, you have no good road and you're kind of standing in the results of your own poor decisions and kind of you've got nowhere to go. But today I'm talking to the young people, like I said, young believers, ages 18 to 24, who are trying to get married, who want to find themselves in a better situation in their future, okay? Who don't want to wake up one day and realize, holy cow, I'm in a relationship with somebody who's going to leave me, or I'm in a relationship with somebody who is a terrible person, or something like that, okay? And so I'm talking to those people who don't want to end up there. And so I'm going to kind of tell you the steps that again, looking back with the benefit of hindsight, I believe I should have taken in order to make wiser decisions and be in a better place. Again, everything I say on the show is from a Christian perspective, so if you disagree with that, then this is not the show for you unless you're looking to learn more about what the Christian worldview is on A, B, or C issue. Okay, but without further ado, let's go ahead and see what they say.
Talking about that today, we're talking about our breakup, what happened, why we broke up, what that was like. Well, we actually broke up twice.
More than that, but two serious ones.
Two serious ones. When you're dating, you break up. When you're unequally yoked in an unhealthy relationship, you might break up every other weekend like we did. But
I don't know about that. I don't think you should be breaking up at all. And let me just lay my argument out here clearly for you guys. Well, she did acknowledge that they were unequally yoked, so that's a situation you shouldn't find yourself in. But I don't think you should break up every other weekend. I don't think you should ever break up at all. I don't think you should enter into a committed and defined relationship with another person unless you can confidently say, I'm not going to leave this. Right? And unless the other person equally matches you in investment and commitment level, right? I don't think you should step across the line with somebody who does not match your interest, commitment, and investment level, and who beyond the shadow of a doubt that not only God approves of this union, this soon-to-be union, but also that you will not have any second thoughts and get cold feet, right? Because if you can't enter the relationship knowing that, you don't need to be dating, you need to be friends in order to prevent heartbreak. Because heartbreak comes when one person has not shown the foresight to look into the future and see what will come of this relationship and enter it anyway. That's what happens. The person does not look ahead. They don't ask God before they enter the relationship. They're asking God while they're in the relationship if they should be in it. That is a terrible idea. You ask God before you enter the relationship if that is a good idea. And then before you enter the relationship, after you've asked God, you need to ask yourself, can I stick around in this relationship for the long haul? Can I actually put a ring on this woman's finger? can I actually step into a covenant commitment for the rest of my life with this man? Because if the answer is no, or I don't know, or we'll see, you don't need to be entering that relationship, because that's how you find yourself in a position, a month down the road where you're getting cold feet and backing out and breaking someone's heart, right? Who did their work, who put in their prayer, who put in their foresight, and they knew where they stood. And suddenly you're leaving that person who was 100% invested and committed and, communicated that up front, in a bad spot. Okay. And so I would say just don't enter a relationship. It's not necessary to break up over and over like that. And we'll see kind of her further hash out this idea.
Had two very serious breakups that were like, okay, we're done with each other. But clearly we're not done with each other, which is great. But yeah, we're going to go through that story today. And we literally had to take notes because we were thinking back on it, and yeah, it just feels like forever ago.
It feels like forever ago, but also like yesterday too.
Yeah.
It's like weird.
But like we were like remembering that time, and we were like, wait, that happened? There's
like,
so many things.
Like the feelings of it feel fresh, but
right.
the specific things that happen
right.
feel like an eternity ago.
I know. And it also feels like we're reading about someone else, because like, how was that actually us? Mm-hmm. How did we go through that? How did we grow through that?
Oh my gosh.
So where should we start, babe? So where we left off, I think that we didn't really touch on. So we kind of ended, and if you guys have not seen that episode about Drew and I's story, today's episode is going to make way more sense if you watch that first. So I highly recommend watching that first. But we left off where you went to college to go play basketball, mm-hmm. and we were doing long distance. And Drew is a lover boy. And so he was trying to make long distance not a thing, or at least like decrease the amount of distance as much as possible. Mm-hmm. So what did you do when you were in college and you...
Okay, I do want to just stop here and say that, long distance, there's kind of a huge debate on that. I'm not going to say it can never work, but for me, I will tell you that every relationship I've had, romantic or otherwise, that has had more than, a 150-mile gap between it, did not last. Okay. And so for very practical reasons, I mean, you can't have face-to-face connection with somebody who's across the country. And, I've seen this break up families. I've seen this break up couples. I've seen this break up, just friends. It's really, when you move across the country, when you establish a relationship with one sphere and then you totally remove yourself from that sphere and move hundreds of miles away, I think you're saying in that moment that you're okay with giving up the friendship. You're okay with giving up the romantic relationship. You're okay with giving up the family connection in your pursuit of A, B, or C goal, right? Because it really does hurt the relationship. And, again, the only reason for moving that you would have is something else, like college, like he said, or a job, like he said, or living in a city or something like that. And so you're really saying that whatever reason you're moving for is essentially more important to you than having a healthier connection with the people in where you grew up or where you live currently. And so that's kind of the problem I have with long distance. I don't ever think that is that is actually a good idea. Not because I think it can't work, but because a lot of the times I think it can't work, but I think it's a bad idea because why are you leaving, man? Can you really not do whatever you're wanting to do here? Like, have you asked yourself that question? What is so essential that you move? Why are you so dead set on moving? And that kind of thing. That's kind of where I come down on that. But let's see kind of what they say here.
I was living in Georgia and Drew was playing basketball in Florida.
Okay. So I started playing basketball in Tampa fresh out of high school. And me and Lila did the majority of our relationship just through like FaceTime. I'd say like 95% of it, would you say? Something like that. Like a lot of it.
We were 10 hours apart.
Yeah, it was really far. It wasn't crazy. Like I could just go to her for a weekend or a day trip or anything like that.
But we did do that. We did book a few flights here and there, which was crazy looking back. I was 17 flying alone to go see my boyfriend.
For sure.
Who was in college, which is crazy.
Yeah, we were trying to make it work at any way that we could because we knew that we loved each other. Mm-hmm. Then after my first year of playing basketball in college in that Tampa area, I ended up moving to another school in South Georgia, and I told everyone that I knew that it was just like a better opportunity for me and all these things. And the people close to me knew that I was going because of Lila, and like I was head over heels for her, and I was going to try and make it work like any way I could.
And I think that's honorable. I think that's what an honorable man should do. I mean, I don't think you should, of course, I don't think they should find themselves in this situation where they're hundreds of miles apart anyway, but I think it's great that he actually took maybe even a career hit, definitely took a lifestyle hit, and it put a lot of, stressors on himself and uncomfortable situations on himself just so he could become, move closer to her. But ideally, guys, I think the reason that long distance work doesn't work usually, again, is because you're kind of saying we value whatever we're doing over here more than being together, by living that many miles apart. So he is kind of saying, I mean, and again, I'm not assigning motive to him. These people are probably awesome and everything, but for me personally, if I was at a college playing basketball and my wife Lainey was in, when we were dating, was in Ohio, and I was, continuing to play basketball, I'm kind of saying I value this basketball, opportunity more than having a healthier connection with you. And this is, guys, this is kind of a controversial take. I don't think you should. This is one of my problems with meeting people at college, because what happens? Here's what happens. You have one person who lives in Ohio, one person who lives in Alabama, moving across the country to a new university, Cedarville or Harvard. I don't care where. I don't care if it's Christian, private, public, or Christian or secular college, or even if it's Ivy League or just a small little branch. They're moving across country to be at this centralized location, living in the same area together. So they're developing all these new bonds with each other and interacting with each other and bonding. And so obviously you're going to have potential marriages that form there, right? You're going to have romantic attractions that form there, but those two people forget that they are from different parts of the country. And so they become super invested in this relationship. And then, oh, holy cow, our 4-year term is up and we're still in love, but our families and our homes and our lives are in two different worlds. We're from worlds apart. And so what happens is usually they'll either have to break up or they get married, and then one of them gives up his or her life and moves to the world of his or her spouse. That's what usually happens. So instead of trying to, that's really the only option. Because if you meet in college and get married and you're from two entirely different parts of the country, you're going to live in the same spot. So your options are either move to a separate area away from both of your families or move to the area of one of your families. That's your option. And so this is kind of the problem I have with meeting online and at college, or I'm sorry, not online and at college. Compare that to how I met my wife. I met my wife online, but she was local. What that means right away at the start, before we've even developed any attraction or interest or feelings for one another, the attraction was still there, but not the interest in the feelings. We know that we both live in the same area and we have access to one another's life and family without moving. So that is a huge plus, guys. And I would encourage you, I would super, super encourage you to make sure that you're looking for a spouse in your field of access. And yes, I understand that a long time ago, we only had access to our immediate tribe prior to transportation and communication via the internet. And I know that we're in a world today that is hypothetically a lot more connected via, locomotion and airplane travel and boat travel and all of this stuff, even instant messaging across continents. I understand that, but it's not the same as a face-to-face connection. And people think that you can have these maintainable long-distance relationships just because of the improved transportation and communication methods we have today. But it's really not true, because in the end, your goal is marriage, right? Your goal is being together as much as you possibly can, which is an honorable goal. And so if that's your goal, you can't solve that with internet or with, airplanes. You have to actually be localized around a common spot, right? You have to be together with your partner. And so I would encourage you to shop. Shop is such a terrible phrase when it comes to looking for a partner, but I would encourage you to look for your partner in your area of access. So if you live in Georgia, don't look for a spouse at college in Florida. If you live in California, don't look for your spouse at a college in Nebraska. Okay. Don't essentially move across country and look at an entirely different pool of people from entirely different areas of the world when you have access to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people within your immediate geographical vicinity, right? And so that's what I would encourage you to do, because then once you enter into that committed relationship with that person, you're already localized. And again, I would have the conversation with them, like, are you ever going to move in the future? Like, do you ever see yourself moving? This is a conversation that Lainey and I had really, really early, because I am not going to leave my family. I'm not going to leave my community that I've built here. I'm not going to leave my friends. I'm not going to leave my family. I'm not going to leave her family. And she was not going to leave mine or hers as well. And we knew we were never going to move. And we immediately cleared that out of the way so we could begin developing a permanent life here, right? Because the longer you have to build a life, the higher quality that life's going to be. And if you hit the reset button by moving every 5 years, it's going to be hard to build a high quality life. And so don't look for, my point there is, look for your spouse via the ways I discussed on the show in prior episodes. If you want to hear those, go back and listen to them. I have a really cool method of finding your spouse. I just call it the social media networking method. It's not online dating. It's way, way better than online dating. It's online dating with references, okay? And online dating with facilitators of meetings and people who can make this happen for you. So really, really take advantage of that method. It's how I found my wife, and I tried everything, okay? So definitely recommend this method for finding a partner, but use that method to find somebody local, guys. Find somebody local, because then once you get married, you're not put in the position of either moving to a third, totally different location away from your families, and you're not put in a position of moving, away from your family or away from her family. You can stay in the area that both of your families are from, right? I cannot underestimate how invaluable that is to not only you presently, but also your future children. Let's go ahead and see what else they say, though.
So we'll start from there, the time that I moved closer to you.
Yeah, I literally remember the day that you called me and you were like, hey, I have a surprise for you. And I'm thinking, like, it's something so small. And you're like, yeah, I'm transferring my basketball scholarship to Georgia to be closer to you. And I was like, you're doing what? And I remember I was working at Margaritaville and I went outside and I literally started crying because I was so happy. But then also the reality set in of like, oh my gosh, like we're so young. Like he's making such a huge commitment at such a young age. Like,
okay, pause. That would immediately be a red flag for me personally. Not just, and again, nothing against these people, but if I make a huge, lifestyle change to make it easier on my partner, that should not shock her, because again, she should know that she's in this to marry me, right? She's not in this to find out. She's not in this to do any of that. We should have already done that prior to entering the committed relationship. And so this should not surprise her or make her feel uncomfortable in any way, because again, if she is actually intending to stick around for the long haul, this should do nothing but warm her heart, right? The only reason this would cause her worry or anxiety is if she's thinking, oh man, he's making a big lifestyle change and affecting the course of his life for me, and I don't even know if I'm going to be with him in the next year. That's when she's going to start getting anxiety and cold feet. And again, that should have been cleared up, in my opinion, prior to entering the romantic relationship. So if guys, just make sure, I cannot underemphasize, of all the stuff I talk about on the show, this is really the most important thing. Before you enter a committed relationship with somebody, make sure that they match your interest, investment, and commitment level to the relationship. Because if they don't, if he or she is less interested in you than you are in her, or vice versa, then you're going to find yourself in a situation one day where you're vulnerable to being left. You're going to find yourself in a situation where you're vulnerable to a heartbreak because you did not select someone. Basically, you took a risk with somebody who was not 100% in, right? And so that's what I would say to you. Just make sure, especially if you're the kind of person that gets attached easily, to make sure that they match your interest, investment, and commitment level prior to entering a committed relationship with him or her.
What if we break up? Like, what if this doesn't work out and he's basically changing his entire, at that time, it felt like basketball was your life. He's changing his entire life for me. And so it was a lot of pressure.
Okay, it shouldn't be a lot of pressure though. It should be a lot of pressure because that should have already been cleared out of the way. What if we break up should not be a question. You should, once you've started dating, my take is once you've started dating. Some people think once you're engaged. Some people don't even think it should be permanent until you get married. But guys, I really think that you can know everything you need to know about somebody in order to marry them prior to putting a title on the relationship. So prior to calling her your girlfriend, prior to sitting down and having the DTR, define the relationship conversation with her of we're dating together now, you can know everything you need to know about her in order to get married. I think, because that's what I did. I knew everything about my spouse that I needed to know about my spouse before we started dating. Think about that for a second. I knew everything I needed to know about Lainey and where she stood and if she would ever leave and what her religious beliefs were prior to when we started dating. So essentially, I knew if I could marry her before we started dating. And in that way, you create a relationship where both parties are confident in the other's ability to stick around, right? And so I don't like this whole situation she's describing of what if it doesn't work out? That is irresponsible language. That's code for I want to be able to back out of this and blame something else. I want to be able to back out and blame the will of God. I want to be able to back out and, say that it just didn't work out for other extenuating circumstances that are not my fault. It just didn't work out. It's not my fault. That's what people say who are trying to absolve themselves of personal responsibility for the decisions they're making. You get to decide if it works out. Did you know that? Newsflash, what works out in your life is because of you. If something doesn't work out in your life, it's because you didn't help it work out. Okay? You made a choice, and that choice had consequences, right? So I don't know. And people will, and when I said a minute ago that people will blame the will of God for their failed relationship, they'll say, well, God was just telling us to break up, or God was just telling us that we were unequally yoked, or God was just telling us that we shouldn't be together anymore. And my immediate response to that is, sweetheart, why didn't you ask God that before you started dating this person? Why didn't you sit down and have an honest, heart-to-heart, face-to-face connection with God and say, hey, is this a good person for me to be dating? Because that is the solution. Not entering the relationship and then asking God, hey, should I stay in this relationship today or just bail? You don't ask God after you do something, you ask God before, okay? And so you shouldn't find yourself in a situation where you're unequally yoked or where it's necessary, for you to make a right choice by leaving because you've already asked God prior to getting into the relationship, right? I've asked God if it's a good idea for me to be with you. He said yes or no, and that's why I'm doing this. Not entering the relationship and then saying, hey, God wants me to leave. It's just not what God has for us. That's a bullcrap response. That is a response that somebody gives who is absolving themselves of responsibility for the choices they've made, okay? So when it comes to being unequally yoked, you don't find yourself unequally yoked. Again, there are exceptions to this rule, like if you get saved after you became a couple, or if your partner was actively deceiving you as to their relationship with the Lord, then I understand you finding yourself in a situation of more nuance. But again, unless there's active deceit going on, you have access to all the information you need to have prior to entering the relationship with a person. So if your boyfriend or potential boyfriend or girlfriend is a believer and has a close relationship with Jesus Christ before you ever become his or her boyfriend or girlfriend, right? When you're just friends, you can see how his relationship with the Lord is, and you can make a good decision as to whether or not you went in or a relationship with him based on his relationship with the Lord, right? So that's what I would say here.
For 18 and 17 years old.
For sure. I think were we 19 and 18 at that point?
No, I was still in high school.
Okay.
I was graduating. Oh, I had just graduated high school, so I was about to turn 18, and
I
you
was
were about to turn 19. So
Gotcha.
yeah, we were like 17, 18, about to turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the pressure did set in. I would say around that time, like we thought everything. I would say like around that time, we thought the big reason like we were having fights in our relationship and just like disagreements were because of long distance.
Mhm.
And I remember you used to always say, like, it's just the distance. Like, that's why we're not getting along. Like, if I lived closer, like, we wouldn't have these fights.
Mhm.
And then I think very quickly after you moved, we realized, like, oh, it's not the distance. Like, there's something in our relationship that's not working. And so, yeah, what was our relationship like for you during that time, would you
Um,
say?
I'd say it was still good
Yeah.
for like a lot of it. Like it was still like
Yeah.
happy, fun, like young, just like kind of puppy love still, even
Mm-hmm.
though like we were already like kind of together for like a year or so.
Right.
But we still had like that really like puppy love, like just intense love, like every time we saw each other because it was still
Right.
like a new feeling to us.
Yeah.
Um, but I think something that we didn't really get to experience as much of was the little, or actually not even the little, we experienced the little arguments all the time over the phone and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
but like the bigger ones in
Yeah.
person and like the more like day-to-day things that
Yeah.
came with being together. And
Yeah.
a lot of that I felt like was due to just the difference in the relationships and the walks that we had with God at the time.
Yeah.
And like looking at it in the moment at that time, that's not how I saw it. And I think you saw it more that way than I did,
Right.
because
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
if we're being completely transparent, I think Lila was like further along in her walk with God than I was at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so
Well, she still chose to date him. Okay, that's where I'm drawing the line. It's like, okay, yeah, you're finding yourself in a situation where you're unequally yoked now. Okay, you found yourself in that situation because you chose that. So the issue is not what you should do now. The issue is what you should have done yesterday. Okay, you don't enter a relationship with somebody who doesn't have the relationship with the Lord that you're looking for, right? If they don't have that, you don't enter the relationship with them. When you do, that's when you find yourself in problems where you're unequally yoked with somebody. And I know I might sound harsh when I'm saying that, but I'm not. I'm not trying to sound harsh. I'm trying to say if you have foresight and you look into the future and you have wisdom and you take the advice of Scripture, the people in your life who are wiser than you, and your personal experience into account before you make a decision, you can find yourself in a better situation tomorrow, right? So, guys, before you enter a relationship, make sure that the person you're with has the relationship with the Lord that you're looking for. You have access to that information before you date them. You know what the relationship with the Lord is like. It's totally possible to know that without dating them. All you have to do is spend time with them. Just spend time with the person on dates, asking them questions about their walk with the Lord. And in doing so, you will find out what their connection with God is like. And if you don't like what you find out, then don't start dating them. If you do like what you find out, then you could start dating them on that account. But before you do, also ask yourself these questions. Am I attracted to this person? Are they equally attracted to me? Are they a sincere follower of Jesus, and are they moving towards the goal of marriage? And are they able to stick around? If all those questions you can answer yes, that's a great person to enter a relationship with. Again, in my opinion, that's what worked for me. The times in my life when I didn't do that are the times where I made mistakes and had regrets.
so I think that might be like the main reason that all that stuff was happening, and we're gonna dive a little bit deeper into like the specifics and things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I would completely agree with you. I think during that time we were like definitely in love. Like if you saw us, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like they're such a cute couple." But behind the scenes, we were little hotheads and like we were at each other's throat a lot. Like I would say your biggest thing was like you had a short temper,
Mm-hmm.
and I would say I had a short temper too.
Mm-hmm.
It just
You
looked
did.
different. But like and I can say this now because like I've been through therapy and all the things, but like I'd be like, oh, he's such a hothead, like he gets so mad and he storms off and whatever. But like looking back at me, like I was very quick to like pop off on you, but just because it didn't look like loud
Mm-hmm.
and almost like explosive.
It got loud sometimes.
I mean, sometimes, but I feel like I was like, oh, you have a short temper, almost like because like you're a guy. I
Mm-hmm.
was able to like label that on you.
Like it becomes, it's more aggressive coming
Yeah,
from a
it
man.
feels more aggressive when it's coming
Yeah.
from a man. Than like for me, it's like, oh, she just has an attitude. But I definitely had an anger management problem.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can realize that for sure. But yeah, our relationship, as much as we were in love, as cute as it was, like I would say it got pretty sticky pretty fast when you moved to Georgia to be closer to me. So at this time, I definitely realized that I had a stronger relationship with God. And if you remember our story,
Okay, guys, that's not something you have to realize 3 months into this relationship. You can know that prior to entering the relationship again. So I know I'm really hammering that home, but it keeps coming up in this conversation, and I think that's kind of the source of the problem they're finding themselves in now. Instead of knowing everything they needed to know prior to entering a relationship, they enter the relationship to find out, and that's a recipe for a failed relationship, because then, oh, I just found something out. That's a big deal. And now I suddenly have to back out, and that's my only good option. Whereas no, you're really, the good option was, you should have looked at everything you needed to know. You should have known beyond the shadow of a doubt everything you needed to know prior to entering the relationship, and then you can do that. And to the people who will say, well, that takes time to learn everything you need to know, that's going to take a long time. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I met my wife and married her within a 6-month period. We did not even have a 6-month dating anniversary before we got married. And I needed to know everything. I knew everything I needed to know about her in order to confidently marry her within a month. So it does not take time to learn these things. You just have to be intentional about the questions that you're asking, and you have to be intentional about your intentions for the relationship up front, and you have to be honest. And then you can easily find these things out with somebody, right? And so it doesn't take long.
Drew kind of like met Jesus through me. And so a lot of our relationship was unequally yoked. It was me inviting him to church. It was me sending him these devotionals, like trying to get him to like be a man of God, because I low-key did have that conviction of like, what if we are unequally yoked? Because back then I thought, oh, okay, as long as like he believes and I believe, then we're fine. You know what I mean? But then I realized like, okay, we're on completely different paths when it comes to like our spiritual journey.
Like the trajectory of it. Like,
Right.
I feel like Lila was on this steady, like 45-degree angle.
Trying to.
And I was like probably on like a 10-20-degree angle, you know? Like the pace of the progress and growth was just different.
Yeah. And the thing is about being unequally yoked is like, he was on his own spiritual journey. Like there is no rush for your spiritual journey.
There's no right or wrong.
Right. You were growing with the Lord the same way that when I met Jesus, like he gave me grace, and it took me how many years to like get to where I was to be with him. Like I almost was like in your face, like, come on, like we have to get on this. Like you have to do this every day, because like I wanted you to be at the level where I was, because I knew that, okay, technically this is a sin if we're not on the same level spiritually. And I think that's where the conviction started to set in. And then, you know, at this time, I'm starting to get more involved with like reading my Bible and growing closer to God. So I'm starting to hear words like spiritual leader and how men are supposed to be and all this stuff. And I'm like,
which again, she has access to. I feel like I've said that 50 million times in this video, guys, but she has access to this information before she starts dating this guy, right? And you do too. You don't have to start dating to find out. Starting to date, to become intimate and close with someone in order to find out if they are perfect is like, you know, it's just a bad idea. It's going to end in disaster, okay? It's like jumping off of a bridge to see if you like flying. I mean, that's just not how you do it.
Oh, dang, like in our relationship, I've been doing a lot of the leading. And I remember like I would tell you like, okay, well, just you lead me then. Like you lead me. And I didn't know that this was in the context of marriage. Like I thought, oh, like even if we're dating, like he should be trying to lead me. Like just so much knowledge that I know now that I did not know then. And so I feel like our relationship was just a lot of like trying to match each other spiritually, but it ended up with you probably feeling a lot of resentment. Like I remember you get frustrated.
I wouldn't say resentment. I think it was just you had these expectations for me that I wasn't ready to fulfill, because I wasn't on that path yet. I wasn't like far enough into my journey, or like far enough along and like taking the steps that I needed to like actually be able to fulfill that.
Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I hope that you've gotten a lot out of this video. We're gonna wrap it up there. And kind of the main theme that I want you to get out of this is we've talked about lots in this video: long distance relationships, being unequally yoked, knowing everything you need to know about a person prior to starting to date them. But the underlying theme is you have the opportunity, you have the choice to know everything you need to know about somebody before you start dating them. And that's the way that you're going to have a lasting relationship that doesn't go through these rocky bumps and terrible breakup experiences over and over. The way you get a lasting relationship and a smooth connection is when you put in the work first to know everything you need to know about somebody before you start dating them. And then once you know that, you make an informed decision that is, counseled by God and others around you. And that's how you have in my opinion, a smooth and lasting relationship. And that's what we're all wanting, I think. I don't think we're all wanting this on and off, wishy-washy, fickle, in 1 second, out the next sort of dating life. Nobody wants that. It's a terrible way to live. And so if you want to know where your partner stands and you want to be confident and have a solid connection and confident in his or her ability to stick around and confident in his or her ability to be everything that you're looking for, just know that prior to getting married, prior to starting dating. Because again, that's going to be a lot smoother dating journey on you. And that's what I want for you guys. So hope you've enjoyed listening today. If you have, reach out and let me know through Instagram and Facebook what you thought of the episode. I would love to hear from there. It would make me feel super connected to you guys as audience members, and it would make the podcasting system two-way. You can also comment on YouTube there. I would love to read those. And leave the show a rating and review if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. So thank you guys so much for listening today, and we will talk to you next time.